My brother texted the family group, "Don't come Sunday. My new wife says you'll ruin everything." I just replied, "Understood." The next morning, when they walked into my office, she absolutely lost it. "Hey Reddit, my younger brother uninvited me from a family gathering because his new wife thought I'd embarrass them. Turns out I own the PR firm managing her company's entire brand. When they showed up for their Monday meeting and saw me behind the desk, the look on her face made the whole thing worth it. I'm Vanessa, 27 female, and apparently my family thinks I'm not polished enough to be around their fancy new in-laws. Funny how that works when you're too busy building an actual business to play dress up at brunches. Let me paint you a picture of my family dynamic before we get to the good stuff. My younger brother Kyle is 24, fresh out of college, and married into money 6 months ago. His wife Amanda comes from one of those families where everyone has a Roman numeral after their name and genuine opinions about which country club has better tennis courts. Kyle used to be a decent guy. We weren't super close, but we got along fine. Then he met Amanda at some networking event his buddy dragged him to, and suddenly he became this different person. Started wearing boat shoes unironically. Began saying things like summer as a verb. The transformation was honestly impressive in how complete it was. My parents ate it up. Mom especially. She's been obsessed with appearances my whole life, always worried about what the neighbors think, what the church ladies say, what random people at the grocery store might assume about our family. Dad's more quiet about it, but he goes along with whatever mom wants to keep the peace. Growing up, I was the problem child. Not because I did anything wrong, but because I didn't perform the role they wanted. I didn't giggle at boys, didn't care about homecoming dresses, didn't major in something safe and marriageable like elementary education or nursing. I studied business administration and communications at a state school, worked 3 jobs to pay for it myself, and graduated with a 3.0. 8 GPA. My reward was a handshake from dad and mom saying, "That's nice, dear," before immediately pivoting to talk about Kyle's acceptance to a mediocre private college that cost twice as much. They paid for his entire education. Room, board, meal plan, spending money, the works. Meanwhile, I was eating ramen and donating plasma twice a week to make rent. When I pointed out the unfairness, mom said I was more independent and didn't need as much support. Translation: Kyle was the investment, I was the tax write-off. After graduation, I bounced around a few marketing agencies, learning the ropes and building connections. The industry is brutal when you're starting out. Long hours, low pay, clients who think they know your job better than you do. I watched so many talented people burn out and quit, but I stuck with it. Learned everything I could. Saved every penny. 5 years ago, I took the biggest risk of my life and started my own PR firm. Rohan Strategies, named after my grandmother, who was the only family member who ever believed in me. The first year was rough. I operated out of my studio apartment, client meetings happened at coffee shops, and I ate peanut butter sandwiches for dinner more nights than I'd like to admit. But I was good at what I did. Really good. I understood how to shape narratives, manage crises, and make companies look better than they actually were. Word spread. Clients referred other clients. I hired my first employee, then my second, then suddenly I had a team of 6 operating out of a shared office space. 2 years ago, I signed the lease on a full floor in a downtown building. Last year, I bought the whole building. Rohan Strategies now employs 42 people across 3 departments. We handle PR, brand management, and crisis communications for companies all over the region. Our client list includes 2 Fortune 500 companies, a dozen mid-sized firms, and a rotating roster of smaller businesses trying to level up their public image. Last quarter, we brought in $2.3 million in revenue. I personally cleared about $180,000 after expenses and payroll. Not bad for the daughter who was told she'd never amount to anything because she was too stubborn to know her place. My family knows I work in PR. What they don't know is the scale of it. I've kept details vague intentionally, partly because I'm private about my work, and partly because I learned a long time ago that my accomplishments make my mother uncomfortable. She can't brag about me to her friends without accidentally admitting I've achieved more than Kyle. So when the family talks business, I smile and nod and change the subject. Let them think I'm doing okay for myself with my little marketing job. Meanwhile, I'm out here running a multi-million-dollar operation they couldn't even comprehend. Kyle got married last year to Amanda in a ceremony that cost more than my first car. The wedding was at some vineyard estate 2 hours outside the city, complete with a string quartet, farm-to-table reception, and personalized champagne flutes nobody wanted to take home. I wasn't in the wedding party. Amanda had 7 bridesmaids, all from her sorority or private high school. I got seated at table 9 with some distant cousins I'd never met, and a great aunt who spent the whole reception telling me about her cats. The wedding photos are all over my parents' house now. Kyle and Amanda looking like they stepped out of a magazine spread, mom crying happy tears, dad in his nicest suit looking proud. I'm in exactly 3 photos total. One where I'm half cropped out of a group shot, one where I'm blurry in the background, and one where I'm clearly mid-blink. That should have told me everything I needed to know about where I stood. After the wedding, Amanda started inserting herself into family dynamics. Suddenly, every holiday needed her input. She had opinions about where we should eat Thanksgiving dinner, what kind of Christmas tree we should get, whether Easter brunch should be formal or casual. Mom loved it. Finally, a daughter who cared about the things she cared about, who wanted to discuss table settings and flower arrangements, and whether cream or ivory was more sophisticated for spring gatherings. I watched my role in the family shrink even further. Not that it was huge to begin with, but at least before Amanda, I was occasionally asked my opinion on things. Now I was just the odd one out, the career woman who didn't understand the importance of properly folded napkins. The breaking point came 2 weeks ago. Saturday afternoon, I'm at my apartment catching up on paperwork when the family group chat lights up. Mom created it years ago to coordinate family stuff. Usually it's just mundane logistics about who's bringing what to dinner or when we're meeting up. Kyle sent a message. Quick update about tomorrow's gathering. I barely registered it. We had a casual Sunday thing planned at my parents' house. Nothing fancy, just family hanging out. Maybe grilling some food, watching whatever game was on. I'd already confirmed I'd be there. Then the next message came through. Amanda and I talked it over, and we think it's better if Claire sits this one out. Her new in-laws are coming, and Amanda's worried about first impressions. No offense, but you know how Claire can be. We want to keep things polished. I read it 3 times to make sure I understood correctly. My own brother, in a group chat that included me, just uninvited me from a family gathering because his wife thought I'd embarrass them. The reasoning wasn't even subtle. I wasn't polished enough, wasn't presentable enough, would somehow contaminate their fancy in-laws with my presence. Mom responded immediately with a string of okay and makes sense, and we understand, sweetie. Dad sent a thumbs up. Nobody said a word in my defense. Nobody asked if this was okay with me. Nobody even pretended to care that I was being openly excluded and insulted in front of the whole family. I sat there staring at my phone, that familiar burning sensation in my chest. The same feeling I got when Mom forgot my birthday but threw Kyle a surprise party. The same feeling when Dad paid for Kyle's new laptop but told me to save up for my own. The same feeling from a lifetime of being the afterthought. My first instinct was to defend myself. Call Kyle. Demand an explanation. Ask what the heck how Claire can be even meant. But then something shifted. The calmer part of me, the part that built a business from nothing while my family counted me out, simply replied, understood. One word. No argument, no explanation, no begging to be included. Just acknowledgement that I received the message and accepted their decision. Then I set my phone down and went back to work. Because deep down, I already knew. No matter what I did, I'd never be their version of enough. Not polished enough. Not obedient enough. Not the kind of woman who married rich like Amanda did. I'd always be the daughter who chose career over family, ambition over tradition, success over their approval. That night I sat at my desk in my apartment, the one I bought with my own money in a building I actually own now, and looked at the framed photo on my shelf. It's from Kyle's wedding, the one professional shot where I'm actually visible and in focus. My parents are beaming at Kyle and Amanda. I'm standing off to the side, smiling but somehow separate from the moment. They thought they'd humiliated me, thought I'd disappear quietly, maybe cry, maybe beg to be included. But what they didn't know was that my office, the one they'd all forgotten I ran, was about to become the stage for their greatest shock yet. Because Kyle had a meeting scheduled for Monday morning, at my building, with my company, to discuss the PR strategy for Amanda's business. And I was very, very ready. Monday morning arrived and I dressed with precision. Navy blazer, cream silk blouse, tailored pants, subtle gold jewelry, hair pulled back in a neat bun. The kind of polished professional look that costs money to pull off right, though my family would never notice the details. I got to the office early, reviewed the client file one more time, and settled into my corner office with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown. My assistant Jamie had already set up the conference room, complete with branded folders, water bottles with our logo, and a presentation loaded on the screen. At 10:15 a.m., Jamie's message popped up on my computer. They're here. I smiled. Perfect timing. Through the glass wall of my office, I watched Kyle walk into the reception area. He looked uncomfortable in his sport coat, like a kid playing dress-up in his dad's clothes. Next to him was Amanda, and she was exactly what I expected. Designer handbag, expensive perfume you could smell from 20 feet away, the kind of confident stride that comes from never being told no. They approached reception, gave their names, and were directed to wait. I let them sit for exactly 4 minutes, long enough to check their phones and get slightly impatient. Then I stood, smoothed my blazer, and walked out of my office. The moment Amanda's eyes landed on me, she stopped mid-sentence in whatever she was saying to Kyle. Her perfectly made-up face went through about 5 emotions in 2 seconds. Confusion, recognition, disbelief, horror, and finally, embarrassed panic. "You work here?" she stammered, her polished composure cracking like thin ice. I walked toward them with the practiced calm I'd perfected in hundreds of client meetings. Kyle was frozen, his mouth slightly open, trying to process what he was seeing. "No, Amanda," I said, extending my hand with professional courtesy. "I don't work here. I own it." Kyle blinked rapidly. "Wait, what?" "Welcome to Rohan Strategies," I continued, shaking her limp hand. "Your new corporate PR firm. I believe your company, Lux Amanda Interiors, signed a 3-year brand management contract with us last quarter. The paperwork went through our acquisitions team." Jamie appeared beside me holding a tablet and coffee. "Would you like anything, Ms. Rohan? The conference room is ready when you are." The Ms. Rohan did exactly what I wanted it to. Amanda's eyes went wide. Kyle looked like he was trying to solve a math problem that didn't add up. "I thought your sister worked in marketing," Amanda whispered to Kyle, loud enough for me to hear. "Close," I replied smoothly, gesturing toward the conference room. "I run a national PR agency. Your company is one of my clients. Shall we begin? We're billing by the hour." That's when Amanda let out this strangled noise, somewhere between a gasp and a sob. Not from anger exactly, but from the dawning realization of what she'd done. Who she'd insulted, who now controlled a significant piece of her business's public image. My staff, who'd all heard about Saturday's group chat message by Sunday evening, through the assistant manager who's also my college roommate, tried to keep straight faces. I caught a few subtle smiles as we walked past their desks toward the conference room. Kyle tried to recover. "Vanessa, we didn't know—" "Let's keep this professional," I interrupted gently, holding up one hand. "I'm sure you understand." He fell silent immediately. That was new. Growing up, Kyle never listened to me about anything. Now he was following my lead like I was the authority figure, because in this building, I was. We settled into the conference room. I took my seat at the head of the table, the same position where I'd negotiated million-dollar contracts and faced down CEOs twice my age. Amanda sat stiffly, her designer bag clutched in her lap like a security blanket. Kyle kept glancing between us, clearly trying to figure out how to navigate this disaster. I opened the presentation folder. "Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that there might be some personal awkwardness given our family connection. However, I assure you that Rohan Strategies maintains complete professionalism with all clients regardless of personal relationships. Your account will receive the same quality service as every other client. Does that work for you?" Amanda nodded weakly. Kyle managed a, "Yeah, of course." "Good," I continued. "Now, let's discuss the recent issues with your brand's online presence." I pulled up the first slide. It showed a graph of sentiment analysis for Lux Amanda Interiors over the past 6 months. The trend line was diving like a rock off a cliff. "Your brand has experienced significant negative attention over the past 3 months," I explained, keeping my tone neutral and factual. "The primary driver appears to be allegations from former vendors claiming unpaid invoices. These accusations have spread across industry forums, review sites, and social media. The damage to your reputation has resulted in a 34% decrease in client inquiries." Amanda's face went pale. "How did you—" "It's my job to know what's happening in the public sphere for my clients," I said calmly, "especially what's being said in places you might not think to look. The unpaid vendor issue has created a narrative that your company is unreliable and treats contractors poorly. Regardless of whether that's accurate, perception is reality in PR." I clicked to the next slide showing screenshots of reviews and forum posts. Some were pretty brutal. "This is what we're working with. The good news is that this is repairable with the right strategy. The bad news is that it requires immediate action and complete transparency from you about what actually happened with these vendors." Kyle shifted uncomfortably. Amanda stared at the screen like she was watching her business implode in real time. "Can you fix this?" she asked quietly, all her earlier arrogance gone. "That's why you hired us," I replied. "But I need complete honesty. Were these vendors actually not paid, or is this a smear campaign from competitors?" Amanda hesitated, then admitted, "We had cash flow issues earlier this year. Some invoices got delayed. We've since paid most of them, but a few are threatening legal action. I made notes. Okay, that's workable. Here's what we're going to do. I spent the next 40 minutes outlining a comprehensive crisis management strategy, direct outreach to affected vendors with payment plans, a carefully worded public statement acknowledging delays without admitting wrongdoing, positive story placements highlighting completed projects and satisfied clients, a social media campaign showcasing the quality of work. Throughout the presentation, I was nothing but professional. No petty comments, no subtle digs, just top-tier strategic advice delivered with the confidence of someone who'd done this 100 times before. By the end, Amanda looked genuinely impressed despite herself. Kyle seemed dazed. "This is really thorough," Amanda said, her voice carrying a note of grudging respect. "It's what you're paying for," I replied simply. "My team will begin implementation this week. Jamie will send over the detailed timeline and checkpoint schedule. Do either of you have questions?" They both shook their heads. As we stood to leave, Kyle hesitated at the door. "Vanessa, about yesterday." "This isn't the time or place," I said firmly, but not unkindly. "We can discuss family matters outside of business hours. Right now I have another client meeting in 15 minutes. He nodded and followed Amanda out. As the conference room door closed behind them, Jamie appeared with a knowing smile. "Well played, boss." "Just doing my job," I replied, though I couldn't completely hide my own smile. That evening, my phone started buzzing around 6. First a call from Kyle, which I declined. Then Mom also declined. Then a text from Dad. "Your brother says there was a misunderstanding. Call me." I ignored it and went for a run instead. Came back to find 14 missed notifications. Mom's text was predictably manipulative. "Kyle told us about your meeting. You could have mentioned you owned a company. He's very upset that you didn't tell the family. We're having dinner tonight at 7. You should come so we can talk about this like adults." I stared at that message for a full minute. The audacity was almost impressive. 24 hours ago, they'd uninvited me from a family gathering because I wasn't good enough to be around. Now that they realized I had power and influence, suddenly I should come to dinner so we could talk like adults. I texted back, "I have plans tonight. Maybe next time check who you're insulting before sending group messages." Mom called immediately. I let it ring. Then Kyle texted privately, "Seriously? You own a PR firm and never told anyone? Amanda is freaking out. She thinks you're going to sabotage her company to get back at us." I replied, "Your wife signed a contract with my company 3 months ago. The due diligence was done by my acquisitions team. I had no idea she was your wife until I reviewed the client list last week. As for sabotage, that would be terrible for business. She'll receive the same quality service as every other client." He wrote back, "Can we please just talk?" "Not tonight," I responded. "I'm busy." What I was actually doing was sitting on my couch eating Thai takeout and watching cooking shows. But they didn't need to know that. The power of being unavailable when people suddenly decided you were worth their time was deeply satisfying. Around 9, Mom called again from Dad's phone, probably assuming I'd blocked her number. I answered this time. "Vanessa, this has gotten out of hand," she started, her voice tight with barely controlled frustration. "Your brother and his wife are very upset. Amanda thinks you're going to ruin her business." "Why would I do that?" I asked calmly. "Because of what Kyle said in the group chat. It was thoughtless, but you know how boys are. He didn't mean anything by it. He meant exactly what he said, Mom. I wasn't polished enough to be around Amanda's family." Those were his exact words. "Well, you have to understand. Amanda comes from a very particular background. She's used to a certain level of sophistication," I supplied. "Refinement? Class?" I wasn't going to phrase it that way, but yes. "And you have to admit, sweetheart, you've never been very interested in those social niceties. You're always so focused on work." There it was. The quiet criticism wrapped in concern. "I'm not sophisticated enough because I built a career, instead of hunting for a rich husband. I don't understand social niceties because I value competence over performance. Mom, I run a multi-million-dollar company. I negotiate with executives and board members. I handle crisis communications for Fortune 500 firms. I think I understand professional conduct just fine. That's not what I meant." "Yes, it is. You meant that I'm not the right kind of successful. Not married, not interested in the things you value, not performing the role you wanted for me. And that's been the problem my whole life, hasn't it? I'm successful, but it's the wrong kind of success." Silence on the other end. "Your father and I worked very hard to give you and your brother good values," Mom finally said, her voice cold. "If you can't appreciate that, maybe you're right that we don't understand each other." "Maybe we don't," I agreed. I appreciate you calling. I hung up before she could respond, then turned off my phone for the night. Tuesday morning, I woke up to 17 new messages. Most were from extended family members who'd apparently gotten the full story from my parents' perspective, which I'm sure painted me as the ungrateful daughter who sprung her success on the family just to embarrass her brother. Aunt Linda wrote, "Your mother is devastated. Families should support each other, not compete." Cousin Jeff sent, "Heard about the drama. Kyle says you blindsided them. That's cold." Uncle Paul, who I actually liked, wrote, "Your mom's version of events sounds off. Want to grab coffee?" I responded only to Uncle Paul. "Free Thursday after 3. The rest I ignored. Let them believe whatever story made them comfortable. I had a business to run and actual problems to solve, like the product recall crisis for one of our manufacturing clients. Around noon, Jamie knocked on my office door. "Amanda Lux is here. She doesn't have an appointment but says it's urgent." I considered turning her away. Then curiosity won. "Give me 5 minutes, then send her in." Amanda walked into my office, looking significantly less polished than yesterday. No designer bag, minimal makeup, hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She stood awkwardly by the door until I gestured to the chair across from my desk. "Thank you for seeing me," she said quietly. "I know I don't have an appointment." "You have 5 minutes," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. "What can I do for you?" She took a breath. "I want to apologize. For the text message. For judging you. For all of it. Kyle told me you weren't close with the family, and I assumed that meant you were, I don't know. I made assumptions based on nothing." I waited. She continued. "I grew up in a very specific environment, where your worth was tied to who you married and what social circles you moved in. My mother literally has a spreadsheet tracking which families are acceptable to associate with. It's toxic, and I know it's toxic, but it's hard to unlearn." "That sounds exhausting," I said honestly. "It is. And I think I saw you as a threat, because you represent something my family would never approve of. A woman who built something herself instead of marrying into it. And that scared me more than I want to admit." I studied her carefully. She seemed genuine, which was unexpected. "Why are you really here, Amanda?" "Because I need your help," she admitted. "Not just with the PR stuff, though I do need that. But I need to understand how you did this. How you built something real, without relying on family money or connections. My business is funded by my father's investment, and I'm terrified I'm going to fail and prove everyone right who said I couldn't do it on my own." That was surprisingly honest. "The vendor payment issues," I said carefully. "Were those because you overextended trying to prove yourself?" She nodded, tears forming. "I took on too many projects trying to show my family I could run a successful business. Then I couldn't pay everyone on time, and now everything's falling apart." I grabbed a tissue box from my desk and handed it to her. We sat in silence for a moment while she composed herself. "Here's what I learned," I finally said. "Success isn't about proving anything to anyone except yourself. The moment I stopped trying to earn my family's approval and started building something I believed in, everything changed. It's not easy and it's not quick, but it's real." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "As for your business, we'll fix the PR issues. But you need to fix the operational problems too. Overextending yourself trying to impress people is how you end up bankrupt. Scale appropriately. Hire smart people. Stop taking your father's money if it comes with strings attached." "That's easier said than done." "Everything worthwhile is," I replied. "But you hired my firm because we're good at what we do. Trust the process and be honest with us about the problems. We can't fix what we don't know about." She stood to leave, then paused. "For what it's worth, Kyle feels terrible. He's not great at expressing emotions, but he knows he messed up. Kyle's a grown man. He can apologize himself if he wants to." After she left, I sat thinking about that conversation. Amanda wasn't the villain I'd built her up to be. She was just another woman trying to navigate impossible expectations while figuring out who she actually wanted to be. Still didn't excuse the text message, but I understood it better now. Thursday evening, I met Uncle Paul at a coffee shop near his office. He's my dad's younger brother, the one who actually built his accounting firm from nothing, while Dad climbed the corporate ladder through connections. "Your mother is losing her mind," he said, sliding me a latte. "She's convinced you orchestrated this whole thing to humiliate Kyle." "I didn't even know Amanda was his wife until after she signed the contract," I explained. "Our acquisitions team handles that level of client onboarding. I only review the strategic accounts." "That's what I figured. Your mom's version didn't make sense." He sipped his coffee. "Want to tell me what actually happened?" I walked him through everything. The group chat message, my one-word response, the meeting, the aftermath. He listened without interrupting, nodding occasionally. "You know what the real problem is?" he said when I finished. You're successful in a way they can't control or take credit for. Kyle married into money, which they can brag about. You built something yourself, which makes them uncomfortable because they never helped. I've thought about that. Your mother especially can't handle it. She's built her entire identity around being the supportive mom who helped her kids succeed. But she didn't help you, and you succeeded anyway. That destroys her narrative. I'd never thought about it that way, but it made sense. What should I do? I asked. Nothing, he said simply. Live your life, run your business, let them figure out their feelings. You don't owe them anything just because you share DNA. We talked for another hour about business, life, his kids starting college. It was the most normal family conversation I'd had in years, probably because Paul had also spent his life being the black sheep who chose the wrong kind of success. When we parted ways, he gave me a hug. I'm proud of you, kid. Your grandmother would be too. That made me cry a little on the drive home. 3 weeks passed. I focused on work, went to the gym, spent a weekend hiking with friends. The family drama faded into background noise. Kyle texted a few times. Nothing major, just, hey, and can we talk? Which I responded to with busy and maybe later. I wasn't ready yet, and that was okay. The crisis management campaign for Amanda's company was working. Negative mentions were down 60%. We'd secured 3 positive profile pieces in trade publications, and her inquiry rate was back to normal. She sent a thank you email through the client portal that was surprisingly thoughtful. Then Mom called from a number I didn't recognize. I answered out of reflex. Vanessa? It's your mother. Please don't hang up. I almost did anyway, but curiosity held me. What do you want, Mom? I wanted to invite you to dinner. Just family. No drama, I promise. Why? Because I've been thinking about what you said. About success and values and understanding each other. I don't know if we'll ever see eye to eye on everything, but I'd like to try. I was quiet for a long moment. I'll think about it. That's all I'm asking. She gave me the details. This Sunday, casual dinner, just the immediate family. I told her maybe and hung up. Part of me wanted to refuse just to make a point, but another part, the part that still remembered being a kid who just wanted her parents to be proud, wondered if maybe something had actually shifted. Friday afternoon, I made my decision and texted Mom, I'll be there Sunday, 6 o'clock. Sunday evening, I arrived exactly on time wearing jeans and a nice sweater. Nothing fancy, nothing performative, just me. Mom opened the door and for a second we just looked at each other. Then she stepped back and let me in. The house smelled like pot roast, Dad's specialty. Kyle was setting the table while Amanda arranged flowers in a vase. Everyone moved carefully, like we were all handling something fragile. Glad you could make it, Dad said, giving me an awkward side hug. We sat down to dinner, and for the first few minutes, everyone made painfully polite small talk about weather and traffic. Then Kyle set down his fork. I need to say something, he started. I was a complete jerk with that text message. There's no excuse for it. I was trying to impress Amanda's family, and I threw you under the bus to do it. That was wrong, and I'm sorry. I looked at him. This kid I'd grown up with, who'd somehow become a stranger. Thank you for saying that. I mean it. I've been thinking about it a lot, about how we've treated you over the years. It wasn't fair. Mom cleared her throat. We all owe you an apology. I've spent weeks trying to figure out where we went wrong, and I realized we never actually celebrated your success. We took it for granted, or felt threatened by it, Dad added quietly. That was unexpectedly honest. I don't need you to celebrate everything I do, I said carefully. But I do need basic respect. I need to not be the family embarrassment just because I took a different path. You were never an embarrassment, Mom insisted. Mom, you literally uninvited me from a family event because I wasn't polished enough. She winced. That was Kyle and Amanda's decision, which you immediately supported without a single question. Silence around the table. Amanda spoke up. That was my influence. I told Kyle I was worried about my parents judging the family, and he overreacted trying to manage my anxiety. But the truth is, I was projecting my own insecurities about not being good enough. We're all learning, Dad said. Your mother and I included. We got comfortable with certain expectations and forgot that there's more than one way to build a good life. I felt something shift in my chest. Not forgiveness exactly, but maybe the beginning of understanding. I appreciate you saying all this, I told them. But I need you to understand something. I can't go back to being the family afterthought who gets scraps of attention when it's convenient. Either I'm family for real, or I'm better off keeping my distance. You're family, Kyle said firmly. For real. No conditions. Mom reached across the table and squeezed my hand. We want to do better. Will you give us the chance? I thought about it. about Uncle Paul's advice to live my life, about Amanda's tears in my office, about the fact that holding on to anger was exhausting and I was tired of being angry. I'll give you a chance, I finally said. But I'm not going to pretend the past didn't happen. And if this is just temporary guilt that fades when things get comfortable again, I'm out. Fair enough, Dad said. We finished dinner with slightly less awkward conversation. Afterward, Kyle and I ended up in the backyard, while Amanda helped Mom with dishes. Your company is really impressive, he said. I had no idea you'd built something that big. I didn't advertise it. Why not? I shrugged. Didn't feel like I'd get the reaction I wanted. Easier to just keep my head down and do the work. That's sad. It was. Maybe it's changing. We stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Kyle said, Amanda really likes working with your firm. She says your team is the most competent group she's worked with. We're good at what we do. She also said you gave her advice that wasn't in your contract, about scaling her business properly. She needed to hear it. You could have let her fail. Would have solved your Amanda problem pretty efficiently. I looked at him. I'm not that petty, and honestly, I like her more now than I did initially. She's trying to figure out who she is outside of her family expectations. I relate to that. Kyle nodded slowly. I think this is going to work out. The family thing. Maybe. We'll see. As I drove home that night, I felt lighter somehow. Not fixed, not healed, but less burdened by the weight of old resentments. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Thank you for coming tonight. It meant everything. I smiled and responded, thanks for trying. It wasn't perfect. Family never is. But maybe, just maybe, we were starting to figure out how to be family on terms that actually worked for everyone. And if nothing else, at least now they understood one important thing. I didn't need their approval to be successful, but having their respect would be nice. I'd spent 27 years being underestimated by the people who were supposed to believe in me most. Maybe the next 27 would be different. Or maybe not. Either way, I'd be fine. Because I'd already proven the most important thing to myself. I could build something real. Something meaningful. Something entirely my own. And nobody could ever take that away from me. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true.